Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fetch Quest podcast, where we talk about video games and more. I am your host, Guy, joined by my fellow co-host, Connor,
Hello.
Brewer,
Hey, what's up, everybody?
and Liam.
Hello, everyone.
So, how's everyone been today?
I've been pretty good. How have you been, Liam?
That's a load of garbage, man.
What? You good? We're recording, by the way.
No, dude, I'm not good. I was just checking the review scores for Shadow of the Erdtree, and it's only at a 95.
Liam, why are you upset? 95 is like one of the highest scores of any Souls game, let alone like a DLC.
Because that game is perfection. Shadow of the Erdtree is perfect. It should be 100. Nothing is better than it. It has 0 flaws. Just look at Mesmer.
Connor, he's getting out of control again. Get the sleep pots.
Fine.
Dude, so like you got Mesmer, and then you've got Midra, and he has like the Lord of Frenzy Flame, and then like and then you can do this, and then you can it's so.
Oh, God, finally. I thought he'd never shut the fuck up. Oh, my lord.
You know, his rant actually inspired me a bit.
How exactly?
I think we should talk about review scores today. You know, I feel like that'd be a good topic.
Shit, I'm down.
You know what? Why not? He already brought up a review score, so might as well.
That was a nice nap. What are we talking about?
That brings us to today's topic, review scores, to which I would give Liam's nap there a 5 out of 10. Kind of mid, if we're going to be honest.
Shit, I give it a 4 out of 10. That was a lame nap.
Dude, what are you talking
The
about?
best-
It was.
The best 7 out of 10 nap I've ever seen.
I give it a half-eaten melatonin gummy out of 5.
I'd give it a solid 8. I got some hunk shoes in, little mimis. Pretty good.
Oh, God. Well, I'm glad we're done reviewing old Liam's little nappy there, but this is kind of an interesting topic we're covering today, is the review scores of gaming. Now, reviewing things is not specifically a video game only thing. Giving a score to something or reviewing it has been as old as fiction. Movies have been doing it for a while, books, plays, etc. But I think we're definitely going to be talking about just like review scores in terms of like gaming culture and how like they have a pretty big impact. And even though like journalism is pretty like it's made fun of a lot in gaming for pretty good reason, a lot of people still rely on like gaming journalism for a lot of stuff, especially with review scores. So I kind of want to talk about that today, boys. I want to like hear our thoughts about like why are like review scores like important, or like do we think they're good? Do we think they're bad? I want to hear some thoughts.
I'll say, while I don't love review scores, I do kind of see them as a necessary evil, because with how many games we have on the market right now, and just how many like keep coming out, like it's hard to take a break from like doing your backlog, because like there's so many new games coming out that you want to play that look amazing, to where like there's only a finite amount of games you can play. So I mean, the easiest way to decide like, okay, is this worth my time? Check a review score. Like, you shouldn't just use that as your metric, but it is a decent metric to be like, should I further invest into looking into this game and whether I should play it or not? That's kind of what I see it as right now.
I agree with Brewer. I think it's a very necessary sort of aspect that we have to deal with when it comes to games and just media in general, because I do admit that like a lot of times like they can be very skewed, or there can be a lot of bias in them. Like IGN is a good example of like they'll just review something, and because they're either getting like not I'm not gonna necessarily say they're getting paid off by the studio, but it's very obvious they're trying to get good favor with like studios and stuff
Yeah, I do
like
think
that.
that's definitely another topic
So
for later. Just like the
yeah,
scores being influenced by like free review codes,
stuff.
early copies, and then also just relationships with different companies.
Yeah, yeah, and we can definitely go into that later, but it's a very like rough sort of thing, but I do think it's necessary because imagine if like I can't remember what it was called, but that one Gollum game. Imagine if nobody had seen like review scores of that and everyone played it and there was like in a world where there was no trailer for it and we didn't have review scores, like that would have been a travesty.
Well, I will say in Gollum's case, I still don't think it would have done well considering the fact like, oh cool, Lord of the Ring game. Oh, it's just based on that Golem, that shitty little thing. Why the fuck would I want to play that?
Dude, you're gonna upset the Golem stands.
Oh no, the like -1 Golem stands are gonna get me.
I love that you guys have been mispronouncing Gollum the entire time. Like that's just really
I
funny.
mean, who
to me.
gives a damn, man?
Who cares about
I do. I am the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. I love Lord of the
You,
Rings.
there's,
Don't-
you are probably like number like 20 million in terms of biggest Lord of the Rings fan.
But I'm number one in biggest cock.
I'm the biggest Lord of the Rings fan, and it's over that image of all the robots.
Or like all the Buzz Lightyears.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god. But that's actually an interesting topic, like with the Gollum game, is that like a big thing as to why at least I didn't get it is that it looked like shit, but also the reviews for it were really, really low, which prevented people from wasting money.
Thank God.
But there is one thing I want to talk about. There's some games where like they'll get like middling reviews or outright bad reviews, but they still sell well. And I am primarily talking
Madden.
about FIFA.
FIFA, Madden,
yes.
COD.
Sports games
there
and
are a
COD,
lot
basically.
There's a lot of games that aren't. Let's be real. That aren't good or aren't innovative or anything like crazy, but still get a lot of play because they're either legacy games or they appeal to a wide audience that aren't as like big gamers as we are,
Yeah.
because
Well,
they and that's why they may not be good games, but they're big games.
well, honestly, I think with review scores, they matter more to people that like are trying to play like a bunch of games, like get some use out of their consoles, versus like the casual market and just like little Timmy who just like wants to play 2K because his favorite player is in there. So, okay, that's fair. And then just the casual audience that like they don't really care about like getting a big immersive experience or like a life-changing game. They just want to play their damn Madden, so, or get their COD matches in. So they don't really even check the scores. They just buy
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah, and that's a thing because like it's hard to measure the impact of like review scores or critic scores because there are games where reviews are influence sales a lot, and then there're just games where it has the inverse effect of like review scores are like down, or up, yet they still don't sell a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for the more niche titles out there, a review score is definitely a hell of a lot more important. Because, like, in Mad, 2Ks, FIFAs, all those, I feel like it's unfortunately one of those cases of they're too big to fail. Like, yeah, they probably could fail at some point, but as it is right now, people are still going to keep fucking buying the game. Like, no matter how terrible they are. Especially because even if they're buggy as hell at release, some people will be like, oh, it's fine, just wait like 5 months and it'll be patched.
Yeah, I think another good example of that would be like Pokemon, and I know that example gets brought up a lot of like, oh, modern Pokemon's really bad, but everyone still buys it anyway. But I do think it is important to like at least bring up as an example here because, yeah, the modern Pokemon games are kind of dookie cheeks.
Yeah, well, I think
They'll have a bunch
too,
of bugs.
Scarlet and Violet's reviews Like it was it's completely fair, I think, for a game you're reviewing, if it's being released on like X date, that you're going to review it based on that and not just like what it's going to be like in the future. Because if a game is like in an ass state when it releases, then the game should have been fucking delayed or something, or it needs more time in the oven. I don't want to review a game based on what it could be in the future. I base the game on what it is now, like what I currently have in hand, what I am playing, not what I'm gonna have to wait half a year for.
Yeah, and if you want to do that, just review it after it's in a fixed state.
Yeah. Or better yet, they could
That's
just
also really
keep it
interesting.
in the oven, just not delay the damn game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's also really interesting to think about as well, because because the reviews for like the same game that changes over time, it'll have different states of quality, so you're gonna look at it differently. Like a lot of fighting games and games with like developing metas that constantly are changing. The feeling and the quality of the game is always changing. So should you like review a game based off its initial seasons or initial patches, or maybe wait to review it when it's completely done and like its sequel has come out? Games like that are like very hard to review. Like Street Fighter V, there's a great example
Ooh,
here.
yeah.
Street Fighter V was the lowest rated Street Fighter game, I think, on like just by everyone, by all the like mainstream reviewers like IGN, GameSpot, etc. They reviewed it lower than the typical Street Fighter game, because at first it had pretty jank mechanics. It didn't have that many characters. It was a weird like vanilla state game. Then as years came on, more characters got released and more mechanic changes happened, and by the end of Street Fighter V, even if a lot of people don't think it's the best game in the series, it's a pretty damn good fucking game.
Yes.
But the thing is that, are you going to keep that initial judgment of it being like kind of mid-game at first, or are you gonna like see it for as it is now, as the great game that it is?
Oh, we get to talk about. Oh, this is my jam. We get to talk about games that started off bad and then got good. We know what I'm
Cyberpunk.
talking about. See, because that's the funny thing. Cyberpunk probably has really garbage reviews, but now with the update 2.0, the game's over. But like now, top 10 game for me. But you're not going to see that in reviews, because reviews can get outdated. But the initial review is probably very accurate. So you shouldn't like it. It's not to say that reviews are bad. It's just to say that you can't trust all reviews, especially if a game has gone through like a long, active life cycle of development.
Yeah, live service games are just weird in that element. Like Helldivers was like overwhelmingly positive. Like people loved that game until, Sony did a Sony. They implemented a shit account system, so then people started review bombing it.
Yeah, and that's God, that's such a like sad thing to see, because like the game isn't really worse. It's not even worse. If anything, it's better, because there's more content, there's more stuff to do, there's more stuff to unlock, and it's more rewarding playing it now than it was playing it in vanilla. So the thing is that like, do you judge that though based off like the mixed reviews that it's gotten because of the phase, or do you accept it for what it is now? You know what I mean? Reviewing stuff is very nuanced.
Yeah, I kind of see it as like also a difference in like critic reviews versus a general audience, especially with like Steam reviews, with how easy it is to just like post a Steam review. Like a Steam review, like in that case with Helldivers, wasn't a lot of times people saying like, oh, this is like this is the game's quality. That was more so them trying to send a message, because like a review score does send a message to a lot of these companies about like what you're thinking about the game and what they need to change, which like people like putting Helldivers at overwhelmingly negative actually did change. Like they went back on what they were originally going to do. Well, not completely. You still can't play it in some countries because fucking Sony sucks ass. But to some degree, it did help over time.
They listen. they do genuinely listen.
Yeah. But I think we've been going over sort of like how like, companies, or not companies, but like, game journalists, stuff like that, how they'll review games, and I was sort of wanting to see what is our personal criteria for what makes a good game? Like, how do we judge it, you know?
That, I feel like it's going to be a different answer for everyone. If you don't mind, Connor, could you go first and then I go second on that?
Alright, I'm fine with that. I think the way I usually will, like, basically base what a game is, like how good it is, like, stuff like that, is there's like two things I have, and it's how fun I had with the game, because I feel like for any game, the most important thing is if your player is having fun. And so to me, if I'm not having fun throughout it, I'm just not gonna, think it's that as good as another game that I had a lot of fun with. And then the second thing is essentially how well is the full package? Like, how well does each component fit together into a sort of whole? Like, because, if I had fun throughout and then there's just one part that really sucks, well, that's fine because everything else fit together so well. But if nothing fit together really well, whether that be gameplay, story, stuff like that, then I'm gonna, rank it lower. At least then that's just for me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that's fair.
I personally, like, game rating is very hard to do, like, because you got to think in the context of what the game is. So if you're going into a game that has a very heavy narrative, I'm obviously going to judge it, like, give it the review score is going to change depending on how well I think they execute upon the story. But if you play a game, say, like, that's purely for gameplay purposes, like Street Fighter, Monster Hunter, games like that, Smash Brothers, purely on gameplay, I do not give a shit about the story or the writing, and it really doesn't play a factor. I do think, though, that the most important thing that goes into where I, like, review stuff is gameplay. And to go, like, more alongside this, I think how I typically view it is no game is perfect because perfection does not exist. There's always going to be a nitpick, there's always going to be a flaw, like, you can, like, see with your little microscope on every single video game. So because of that, I don't just because I give a game a 10 does not mean that I think the game is absolutely perfect. Fuck no. Every single game that I have played has a flaw. But if I give it a 10, then that means the only real flaws that that game has are nitpicks, and they're so overshadowed by such overwhelmingly, like, positive traits that it does not matter. Like, some 10 out of 10 games I would say are Persona 5 Royal, God of War, Bloodborne, Minecraft, etc. Like, all of those games have flaws, but I do think they deserve a 10 status. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have kind of a similar view because, like, what's difficult for me when I'm, like, rating a game is rating, like, my objective feelings on it versus just, like, what I'm kind of vibing with at the moment, like how emotionally attached I personally got to the game. That, and also looking at a game for what it is, like, it's very hard to, like, rank something like Elden Ring next to, like, let's say an NES game like Tetris. They were made in very different time periods, very different technology, very different scopes. So, like, obviously Elden Ring is the better game. There's, like, more to do in it. There's more game to mess with. But, like, is it really fair for me to judge, like, fucking little Tetris next to it when it was never meant to be that? But also when it executed upon its ideas perfectly, because I think that's what I try to look for. With the developer's intentions, did they fully accomplish what they wanted to do? Did they make a successful narrative? Did they tie said narrative in well with its gameplay? Did it have, like, a really engaging music as well? like all those aspects I try to rate it, because like similar to Guy, like if I list a game and I say it's like a 10 out of 10, I still don't think it's perfect, because like similar to him, nothing is perfect. I always do have nitpicks, and with the big scope of a lot of the games that are coming out today, there's always going to be some little parts of it that like could use some tinkering, or like could have had a little more time in the oven. But we're never going to get something that's perfect, because when you're trying to appeal to a wide market of people, it's just impossible to do that. So like personally, if I give a game a 10, I see it just as like, even if it does have a couple flaws, for the main parts that it tried to focus on, they executed it so well. Its highs were like so high that like I didn't even think about the lows. Like I had reached the peak of the mountain and the view was so gorgeous that I didn't like look directly down and see a couple of the spikes and thorns that I had like trudged through to get to the peak. That's how I see it personally, because I think the more games I've played as well, the more I kind of tend to like shy away from review scores, because there's a lot of games I can like, it's like this is a 10 out of 10, this is a 10 out of 10, but like then I try to rank them. I'm like, okay, they're both 10 out of 10s, but like, you know, which one's an 11? you guys know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that, man. It's like, no, I feel that, because like a lot of my top 10 games are like favorites. I'm like, that's personal bias I'm putting into that. If I'm thinking it critically, that'd be completely different, because like my third favorite game, I don't even think is a 10 out of 10. Yet most of my list, like even the games that are below it, are 10 out of 10s in my opinion. Even though that third game isn't a 10 out of 10. Yeah, I get what you mean.
I have that same issue too, where like, yeah, this game, if I look at it objectively, it is worse than these other games that I rank it higher than. But I still love this one. It's my baby. I've nurtured it. I've cared for it. I've put 500 hours into it. You know, it's just hard. I feel like that's where I'm starting to lean more into like maybe like tier list or something. Like these are all peak. These were in the very good.
Yeah, I've always felt like tier lists are just a better way to express your opinion on a topic than, you know, a top 10 or a top 5. Because if you ask me to name my top 10 characters, I'm gonna have a really hard time doing that, besides for like maybe the top 3. But if you tell me to get like a bunch of my favorite characters ever and put them in a tier list, that's a lot more, you know, that is a lot more doable.
Yeah, I kind of see what you mean, because like if I'm also, characters have the same problem as like a game as well, like what they're made for. Like if I try to compare a motherfucker like Kratos to like, let's say Nico from One Shot, Kratos is a character that has been in multiple games and giant sagas, and it has massive character arcs, like with tragedy, accomplishment, and then like felling gods. Whereas Nico is a funny little cat dude, but even in like the short like 5-6 hour game he's in, like he still accomplishes all of his goals as a character. He's still very compelling. I still love him. He's still absolutely precious, and he deserves all the pancakes in the world. But how do I rank him next to motherfucking Kratos? That was the question.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've always sort of struggled with too. Like, and it's not even like characters or stuff like that, like bosses and video games, you know, video games themselves. I've always felt it very tough to sort of go over that and like give them a sort of number.
Yeah. Definitely.
We got a little sidetracked. Liam, I want to hear how you review games, or like how you look at them critically.
Okay, so usually when I review a game critically, I don't really like, I can have like early impressions or like that, but I usually wait till I beat a game, or I'm very far into a game, or like if it's like a 20-hour game, I'm like wait till like 20 or like 12, 15 hours, unless I just hate the game, until I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like start thinking about this, because a lot of games have a lot of build-up that maybe not be as good, but then they have a payoff that makes it all worth it. Like a good example would be Persona. I know this might not be the best take, but there are like slow parts of the game that you kind of have to like push yourself through in order to get to the good parts of the game. The game overall is amazing, but there are parts that are slower or that are maybe not as enjoyable as the parts you want to, but they're not bad parts. So like I don't like to look at games in terms of like pieces, but like overall the experience of a game, or if like you said, if it's a pure gameplay, the feel of it, it's all different.
Yeah.
No, that's completely fair, man. God, review scores are just crazy. Like, like thinking about a game critically is just really hard to do, especially like here. Okay, this is leading on to the point I was trying to do. I want to ask you guys something. What is one of your favorite games, like ever, that you
Mario Galaxy.
can play like anytime, that you love to death, but when you think about it critically, you cannot give it a 10? For me, that is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for me. I think that game is near perfect, except for some UI issues, some
Online.
design issues, honestly, and the online. I think the way like the matchmaking works is horrendous. I think how some of the characters are balanced are pretty bad, and honestly, it's a game I feel like is stuck in a like constant limbo of it can be better, but the developers won't make it better, and that's why I cannot give it a 10.
Okay, mine. This was back when it was a good game, and not now. But when there was no 2 on the name, I absolutely loved Overwatch. I loved everything about it. I know it's cringe now. It's a bad game now. Don't get me wrong. But back then, I put so many hours into that video game, and objectively, even back then, it had a lot of problems with balancing, with variety, with loot boxes, with that kind of stuff. But it was such a fun game that I could pick up and play by myself with other people, quick play competitive arcade or whatever it was. I was invested. But now that game is beyond repair, in my opinion. I think just put down the dog.
Just put it down.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, man.
Brewer, Connor, what about y'all?
Brewer, if you've got a game, you go first. I'm still trying to think.
I have a hard time thinking about this as well, because like there's a bunch of games I could easily say that for, like when I play them as a kid, but like I played them when I was like 10, so that's not really playing fair. Because like a lot of the games I play now, I don't really have that issue. I think one of the few ones that could maybe come to mind, and this is a bit of a hot take, possibly Animal Crossing.
No, that's completely fair.
I would also agree. Or if you talk about New Horizons, yes. I have problems with that game.
Yeah, well, I did also play New Leaf on the 3DS when I was a kid.
I love New Leaf. Like, I don't even think it's nostalgia.
Yeah, no, but like New Horizons, I love that game. I've put over, like, I put Lord knows how many hours into that game, like maybe 150, 200 or something. And while I did love it, when I look at the content compared to like some of the previous Animal Crossings, that and like what they did for the end game, that and the also like similar to Guy's thing with Smash, the lack of like developers support and like them actually listening to like what fans were saying about the game. Like, it's a really good game, but I would never put it at a 10 out of 10, even for how much enjoyment I got out of it, especially during COVID era. It's still, like, to this day, is not going to get fixed for, like, some of its major flaws. Then just, like, towards the end, like, the only thing you can really do is just, like, revamp your island. There's nothing else.
No, that's completely fair, man. It's crazy, because, like, when giving a score to a game, it's so hard to, like, especially if you love it, but you have to acknowledge, like, it has flaws. Like, even if they're big ones, you have to, like, acknowledge that. Connor,
yeah,
Connor,
I feel like that's, like, part of just loving a game in general, like, loving flawed games. You can still always appreciate the things that they did great, like the parts they really strived in. But I think as like someone who kind of like tries to see myself as a critic, since I mean we run a video game channel, it's our thing. I still try to see the flaws in any of the games I played, and like they could have done this better. Like, love Xenoblade 2, but yeah, they could have fixed a lot of things about that game. I love it, but compared to the other ones, I would not put it at like a 10 out of 10, because it just genuinely has a lot of issues that make it frustrating to play, to go back to, or that make it hard for people new to the series to get into as well.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. Connor, I'm interested to see if you have like a favorite game that you cannot give a 10 to.
Oh man. I just thought of one, but I'm not gonna say that because that's gonna get me hanged.
Say it.
Say it, Connor.
Say it.
Have the
Connor.
I think I
hot
know.
take of the night.
I think I know what he's talking. I think I know what game it is. I feel like I know.
Liam, please guess.
Is it Elden Ring?
No,
Okay.
it's not.
I thought it might have been Elden Ring.
Say it, Connor.
I have.
Oh.
Have
Oh,
the hottest
say it,
hot
Connor.
take and possibly get crucified on Twitter.
Say it, Connor! Say it!
Crucifixion. Crucifixion.
If I had to give, it is a game that I love to death, and I love I love it so much. But if I am objective with it and I am looking at it, I cannot give Tears of the Kingdom a 10 out
Oh,
of 10.
I agree with you.
Oh,
I
Ooh.
I can. You know, the.
Let me
No,
ex-
No,
I
just let me
think I
explain
can
more.
actually agree with you reflecting on it now.
Just let me explain first before you get mad at me, guy.
I'm not even. No, I'm not
Um,
mad. Like that. That's reasonable.
I absolutely adore Tears of the Kingdom. I think there are some very big flaws with it, though. One, the story, the way the story is told to you is just a rehash of Breath of the Wild. There's not enough to the base map. In my opinion, there's not enough done to the base map to where it feels like a completely new experience. And the way the new weapon system works can be very, very annoying at times. And also Korok seeds are still a thing. But the Korok seeds one is more of a nitpick, but I still think I love the game a lot. I think it's really, really good. I cannot give it a 10 out of 10 for those reasons.
No,
the
that's
depths are
completely
super
fair.
empty.
I was actually gonna say I very much agree with you on that, because like Tears of the Kingdom, well, I absolutely played the shit out of that game and I still love it now. Like, there's a lot more they could have done. Like, for being a sequel, they needed to do a lot more new. From the trailers, that's what we thought we were getting with the Sky Island. But other than like the first
And
initial
so-
Sky Island, the other ones are like tiny in comparison.
Yeah, I agree, and I still love it, and I definitely think I am the most experienced with the game, seeing as how I've 100%ed it.
Wait, what? Hold on, whoa. What do you mean by 100%? I'm interested in this. Wait a minute.
I think he means the
I've
Korok
100%
seeds.
No, I've 100%ed everything. I did all the shrines, all the other stuff. I got all the photos. I got all the Korok seeds. I got all the side quests done. I did all the missions.
Oh my
I got all
fucking
the like.
god, Connor.
you
I am
completed the
so
compendium?
sorry.
Yeah,
That's insane.
Yeah, okay, that's why I like jumped the gun. I was like, wait, what the fuck? Oh my god. Okay,
Yeah, that sounds like hell.
round of applause to Connor. Like, actually, I applaud you for that. That's hard to do.
yeah. It was definitely an experience. You know, it was helped by the fact that there is I think it's something IGN has, where you can look up like the specific they'll have these like maps for games, so you can like look up where
The
certain things
interactive
are.
map.
Yeah, it's like an interactive map, and one of the things for Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild is that you can show like where the Korok seeds are, so that definitely helped. I've done the same thing for Breath of the Wild. I've gotten all the Korok seeds and Compendium and all that other stuff in Breath of the Wild as well.
Oh
Nice.
man, that's wild.
That is
I- I-
insane.
Yeah, I think you can give your opinion and not face like and no one be like you can't say anything. You didn't even play the game. No, you quite legitimately did everything.
No crucifixion for Connor today.
I that is an interesting point I just thought of though, like your opinions on a game based on like how much you played, and my point here kind of being just like I see this a lot of times, especially with like channels that like do 100% completion runs. A channel I will not name anymore that did 100% completion runs. That like how different is your opinion on the game from just like playing it normally versus like 100% doing everything you can, like squeezing out all the content possible? Because I think playing a game normally and 100%ing it are very different. Like sometimes it's the same depending on like the game and its small scope. Other times,
True, that is.
it is a complete hell to even think about like 100%ing a game for the amount of hours you'll have to dedicate into it.
How you play a game can completely dictate how you do it. Like for Tears of the Kingdom, the way you went about doing quests, doing that kind of thing. Like if you speedran the game, and by speedrun I mean just like focused on the main quest and then did all the side quests at once, you might not like the game as much as someone who like spread out all the missions in order to like so that like they could get different parts of gameplay for and have fun with that, or as someone who like immediately was like I'm gonna like complete like 40 shrines in a row, as compared to someone who like the way you play a game is completely can completely change how you feel about a game. Like there are people who would say that SF6 is a bad game because and they only played like the single player, they never touched the multiplayer, or vice versa. They say that it's like it's a one-faceted game because they didn't touch like an aspect of the game, and it's kind of crazy to think that like you can completely dodge aspects of a game and make a review off of that. Like with Elden Ring, I believe Guy too. Actually, no, I'd never used summons or like the ashes mechanic in the game, and that is a part of the game that I have never once experienced. So I can't talk about that because I've never tried them because of a stupid self-imposed challenge. But that is an entire portion of the game, an entire aspect of a game I have never experienced that a bunch of other people have. So when my review of the game is going to be different than someone who used spirits or ashes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's actually a good point. That's a good point to talk about though, because like the thing is that like, oh god, the main takeaway from this is that like everyone has their own opinion and they are valid if they have played it, because the beauty of video games is that they are so varied in how you get to play them and how you have the freedom to do whatever the fuck you want. But because of that, there's always going to be a different experience with everyone, which means they're going to have different feelings with that same game. I probably loved Bloodborne more than Connor. I know he beat that recently. I probably love Minecraft more than Brewer, but we have played those games. We just have different experiences with them, and that is the beauty of talking about stuff like this.
I do want to bring something up real quick. I want to go into the darker side, the non-beauty part of like the ways we play games. Mostly, and we were talking about journalist earlier and like their review scores. I do kind of want to mention something with like the review scores that we get like from major companies like, you know, IGN and whatnot. And like I feel like how skewed some of their reviews can be because of like kind of the rat race that you have when like a game comes out, to be like one, the first one that posts a review of it so you can get your company a lot of clicks on an article. Two, also like trying to get enough recognition to where you get a lot of like review codes and whatnot, like early access codes, so like you don't have to bum rush to play a game like the moment it comes out, so you can review it like during that like hot period of when a game's getting talked about online. Because I think there is like some bias that comes with those games as well, and like the ways you interact with them, that like some reviewers have like kind of admitted to like playing on easy modes or whatnot in some games so they can get through it quicker, so they can make sure their review is done in time. That, or like with certain types of games that are like more cinematic, or they're more of like a visual novel, you press the A button to where you don't really have to interact with it too much, to where like since you didn't have as much challenge, you had an easier time experiencing the game, therefore your review score may be higher on it.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that's fair.
what's some of your guys'
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
No,
I think, yeah, I, think
I
that's
agree
fair.
with that, because like a lot of people this is very true to this game. And hot take here, even though I am literally like this is a part of my personality, I think Shadow the Erdtree is a little bit overrated. What do I mean by that?
Okay, that's the new hottest hot take of the night.
That's the hardest
And
hot take.
Guy, the lover of Souls games, saying Shadow of the Erdtree is overrated.
Don't get me wrong. I still think
Never-
it is a 10 out of 10 DLC and in the best part of Elden Ring. But I think people were a little too frantic and jumped the gun a little with reviewing that game and didn't really acknowledge the flaws. Because all the reviews I saw of Shadow of the Erdtree by like big people too, like GameSpot, IGN, Game Informer, etc., they gave the DLC 10s without mentioning any problems with like the Shadow Tree blessing system or the final boss and like its overtunement, or just some of the like verticality and the traversal, or just stuff like that. And they
I mean, to be fair,
I feel like that those types. Okay, that I feel like that kind of falls into what we talked about earlier, though. With the experience is so good that sure the game has problems, but the overall experience is so good that like you kind of forget about the bad because the good
yeah,
is
and
just
that's
so
fair,
good.
yeah.
But I get like that's their job. That's their job, so they shouldn't get like a leeway. But at least, and again, it's personal. You might have had problems with the verticality and that kind of stuff, but they might not have.
also, I do feel like putting the final boss in like a review, like when most people haven't finished the game, would be a little.
I mean, spoilers
Spoiler.
are not.
Well, I
it's
don't think
still
you have
part
to
of
put the
fucking
final boss
experience.
itself in, but you can just like mention like
You can just mention like one of these bosses is some of these bosses are either overtuned or have some bad mechanic, holy
Yeah.
damage, or the
No,
holy
yeah.
beam. Hair. I'm gonna just say hair. That's it. I hate that goddamn hair.
Liam hates
Yeah, I
it.
think that's like why with like reviews that come out from like major like companies is like you can't always just look towards one of them, especially because major companies have like some of the most inconsistent reviews because like of the amount of different people they have playing games and also like writing about said games. So like let's say I bring up like a platformer game, like let's say Mario Odyssey. If we bring out, let's say like good boy Connor, who loves these games, like he loves platformers, and he's gonna write a really good review in it because like these are the types of games he loves, and he gets down with these. Yeah, a generally good review is gonna come up. But in the same vein, let's say Connor's busy reviewing something else in the company, so I bring out what's a good placeholder name? John. Yeah, let's say John. John absolutely hates platformers. He is absolutely dog shit at them. And then he fails at even the simplest jumps and puzzles. That is how you get a review like SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottoms reviews.
Eurogamer.
Yeah,
Eurogamer.
to where they were
Eurogamer
complaining about the
Cuphead
difficulty of the
tutorial.
game and the difficulty of the puzzles and jumps in the SpongeBob game, when it's literally made for children.
or like the Cuphead.
Cuphead,
Team
Cuphead
Takahashi.
Material.
Yes.
He's actually a nice guy in real
This
life.
game sucks. I couldn't get. He just sucks at the game.
I'm sorry, bro, but your personality in real life is very different than your ability to critique a game. Because if you cannot beat the tutorial of Cuphead without the amount of difficulty he had, I do not think you are worthy of reviewing Cuphead. That's my take for tonight.
Oh god, it's so funny. That entire thing.
Especially
is
because I don't
just-
think games.
Yeah.
It is funny. But I think the thing is with games inherently not being for everyone, especially some certain types of games, like Souls games, like very difficult
Souls
games.
games, RPGs.
Yeah, a lot of JRPGs. I think that creates the problem too of like there's the big fan base that like wants to see their game get high reviews, but it's kind of like a lottery roll with some of those companies. Like, will you have the right person to review it? Because I think some games legitimately too do get Canada, especially JRPGs, because like a 100-hour JRPG that you have to be very involved in with the decision making, I think is going to be a lot more difficult to review than like let's say a 15-20 hour like story based game where it's mostly cinematics going into play, so you hardly even have to interact with the direct gameplay, and it's a lot easier on your schedule too to review it.
Yeah.
That, and also I think another issue like some of those reviewers have as well when you're working with a big company is also something we mentioned before with like kind of appeasing the companies you get like review codes from, and even the ones you don't. That way you're looked more favorably upon, because I don't think they receive bribes, but a lot of times those review codes can end up being bribes as to, hey, here's a free review code, and like if you don't review them well, there's a chance they just won't ever send you another review code again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I see where like the stress comes in of like you need to make sure like you make a good review but also want to appease the developers. But I think I like, don't get me wrong, like there is some glazing when it comes to that shit. Like IGN is very infamous for this, but I feel like they've crossed a few lines in some areas before. I know two of y'all in here are gonna agree with me on this one. They obviously did not play Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition when writing that review, and that
Oh my god, fucking Dunkin' Donuts.
Rain and Duncan.
My favorite character.
for context, for
Rain.
Liam and some of our audience members who may not know, Xenoblade Chronicles is one of the biggest games on the Wii, and I got a remaster for the Switch, i.e. Definitive Edition. And IGN posted the review on it, where they gave the initial game for the Wii a 9 out of 10, and said the only real issue with the game was the graphics. Well, you have an HD, remaster of the game, and they give it an 8 out of 10. Not only this, but there's just information in this review that is just outright incorrect. They mispronounce two of the main party members, Dunban and Rhine, saying Duncan and Rain, even though they pronounce their names throughout the game a lot. And that's just an
Xenoblade
incorrect
characters
spelling.
like shout their names half the game.
It's Roin time.
Dunban,
Duncan.
that's great.
Duncan is like, come
That's
on, like,
Dunban
that's just-
over there.
That's just a misspelling. That's just an outright misspelling. And
Yeah, it's one thing if like your pronunciation is a little different, but like having a whole ass letter swapped out.
yeah, no, that's just wild.
Like, come on, how do you get Dunban mixed up with Duncan?
And another, like, other things that they mentioned through the review was just like, in the original IGN review for the Wii version, they mentioned how fantastic the story was and how it's one of a kind. But in this Definitive Edition review, they say it was tropey and it was absurd. And to me, that was like, wait, what? They couldn't even use the original content of their original review. And also,
Yeah, I think that's the thing I mentioned. Just having so many different people within the company that you're going to be having different voices, because that was very different. That was very clearly a different reviewer than the original for like we.
but I think another big thing that I feel like goes unmentioned is how the dude in that review said that he had to grind a lot for Xenoblade 1, which
Oh
if
my
you've played
god.
that fucking game, there's like no grinding required. You do not need to grind for that game.
Well, I think another interesting thing I noticed as well, like this is only something you would notice if you played the game. The game has an affinity system, right? With like all the party members. So the more each party member is used with another, the higher their affinity will be. You can see during a clip of his gameplay, he only has max affinity with like all of like the first 3 characters you get, and like none of the other characters have any of their affinity charts filled out like at all. So like he stayed with the same strategy, probably only using Shulk throughout the entire fucking game.
Self-report, honestly.
Pretty
Yeah.
much. And that's just like, at that point, that's where that is a line that was crossed, in my opinion, that felt like that review was not valid, or that opinion was not valid, because it showed to me that they didn't pay enough attention to like put in factual statements, and it just felt like they didn't even play the game.
Yeah,
And
it's one thing when you have opinions on the game, like the trophy stuff. Like, okay, I don't agree with that, but that can be someone's opinion. But then, literally, like getting the characters' names wrong and then stating like incorrect information are a whole nother issue. That would be like if I was like reviewing Persona 5 and I was like, guys, if Persona 5, it was kind of mid. I didn't like the palaces. The main character, Jake Paul, was kind of lame, along with Ryoji, and then like Ban Takamuki. I really didn't like those characters all too much. I didn't feel like there was much to them. That or Butaba Sakura was not interesting either.
Yeah, see, that's just not a good review. Or a valid review, in my opinion.
Yeah, because clearly I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm getting stuff completely wrong, and I'm just talking out of my ass.
Exactly. And that just kind of goes into like our point from earlier with how like they want to leave a good review and get some of that, like, you know, they want to get some of the clout from these games and get them out fast. But what was probably going through their head was, okay, this is like a 80 to 90 hour RPG. We probably don't have enough time and scheduling for this. Let's just like use some of the base information that we know about, write a review, and so that we can get that clout and then go on about it. But that did not work. That did not work out for them. They got disliked, bombed to hell and back. Deservingly.
They deserved it. Yeah, especially because I dislike them.
I just like them too.
Yeah, they deserve that.
Yeah,
I think the crazy thing too, I do want to mention this real quick, with a lot of these companies as well, unless if a game is like absolutely dog ass, like completely terrible in every single aspect, a lot of the times they will still get like at minimum a 7 out of 10. Just to like usually appease some people because they don't want to put something out negative, or else they'll usually get a lot of backlash from other fans being like, what do you mean? That game was peak. I loved this game. IGN sucks.
Oh, there's a really good example of that with a game I'm thinking about. Omega.
I have a good example of that too, but it's not for a game. But I will just quickly mention it. IGN gave the animated show Velma a 6, which, if anyone has even watched a clip of that, would know it does not deserve
Oh, it's
that
horrendous.
rating. It's horrendous. And I know it's not for a game, but it's just another good example, I feel like, of them both just probably not interacting with the source material, and also maybe trying to get points with the company that is giving them the
Oh wait,
review
here, the
stuff.
recent example actually of this. They officially posted a review for the last episode of The Boys season 4, and they gave it an initial 4 out of 10. Even though I thought it was personal.
4 out of 10.
Yeah, this was real. This is real. I'm being serious.
Oh yeah. I told
And
Guy about this.
Did,
Yeah.
did they
IGN
did they mistype? Did they just like accidentally type season 4 next to the review score and accidentally leave it as 4 out of 10?
For their season finale, episode, they gave it a 4 out of 10, and then people were calling them out like, "Wait, what the fuck? Like, did you actually watch the episode?" And then a few hours later, they changed the review to a 6 out of 10 and said it was a typo, even though they posted that 4 score on their social media everywhere.
Oh my god, I cannot believe that happened. Dude, Boy Season 4 was like not as good as the other seasons, but 4 out of 10.
I had a better season finale than 3.
Oh my god, that is wild.
Yeah, but back to video games. That is a real thing that happens. Is that like companies can appease they want to appease developers. A gaming example I have of this is Omega Force's Attack on Titan 2. That game is dog shit. And they gave it a 7 out of 10. I've played that game.
Oh yeah, probably because Attack on Titan label there.
Yes, exactly.
Or, funnily enough, Shadow of the Erdtree had this where people review bombed the game because they found it too difficult, even though the game is marketed as a extremely difficult game and has a track record of being a difficult game, and the developers had to go and make the game a little easier with Shadow Tree fragments.
Yeah.
Well, once they make it easier, they just balance them out to make it a little kinder at the beginning.
No, they did buff them overall. They overall give you
it
more
wasn't
damage
like a
if you get them
massive
all.
change though.
No, it's not a massive change. But people complained about the game because their personal experience of the game was that it was too hard, and that means it's a bad game.
I will say, I think there are a couple times also there are like some places will like put a game at a pretty low review just to kind of like get some attention. Like I feel like there's some like Metacritic scores that should definitely be higher because like I was like, okay, I know like 5 of you motherfuckers probably put this at like a 4 out of 10 for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think just sort of like a final point that I would like to go over is what do we believe that like over time review score like games should be you should go back to a game and like try to re-review it and stuff like that, and this also applies to like Metacritic and stuff like that, like, and I think a great example of that would be Ocarina of Time, like, because everyone still holds that as like the greatest game of all time, and I would really like to see like maybe like sometime in the future where either Metacritic or just a bunch of like different companies go back and re-review it and see does it actually hold up as well today as it did when it first came out. Like same with like Mario 64 or other games, older games like that, because I feel like that's a very
I will say on that point, I think that kind of goes back into the thing I was mentioning earlier. You remember how I was saying like Tetris versus Elden Ring? I think it's kind of hard to do that for like really old games because like you kind of have to review them for like what they were at the time.
Final Fantasy VII.
I think. Oh yeah, especially Final Fantasy VII. Like that, I see that game as a 10 out of 10, but like, yeah, it was on the PS1, and like they were kind of figuring things out. It's got some issues. It's got some issues, especially with the character models half the time,
And some mistranslations.
I think though. Oh yeah, especially the mistranslations, like Aerith versus Eris. That's a big one for like one of the major characters in the game. I think though, I think it's more fair to like re-review a game. Like I think modern day with like maybe DLC expansions. Like let's say like the Cyberpunk game, like it was fair to like have those bad reviews at the beginning when the game was literally unplayable. But like along with it getting patched, it also like you had enough reason to come back to it with like that massive DLC expansion, to where like okay, maybe you could go and re-review that game. Like you can't do that for every single game, just like constantly re-review them to like eventually find what is the best game. But I feel like if a game is like going to be adding enough content soon to it, I feel like it'd be fair to review it again. That, or like if a live service game has like ended with its content run, review it based off of like how well it did over the years, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to do though, because like if you weren't there, you're fucked. You can't make an opinion on it. You know, Final Fantasy 11. We're never gonna be able to play it ever. We cannot play Final Fantasy 11 because they shut it down. Because 14 is their moneymaker now. You know, we can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's every now and then there's fan servers, but even then they can only go so far if enough fans backed it up. Like I want to play like some Monster Hunter Frontiers, but a lot of that content just kind of lost to time.
Exactly. Kind of like it's kind of lost media, which is insane to think about. Like that's a completely different topic though. It's just it is important to look at games for the context of when they were made, because I mean, like Tetris versus Elden Ring, like Brewer said, that's a very good like analogy. Like Tetris versus Elden Ring, like two masterpieces, but for totally different reasons. You gotta look at the game for what it was at the time, and that's why I'm actually a little more lenient on Mario 64 than really I would compare to like other games. Because if I'm gonna be honest, Mario 64 I think is a little overrated, but I can see where this praise is coming from, especially for the time of its release, you know?
Yeah, I think Mario 64, like I think if you rank it to like its contemporaries now, you wouldn't rank it as high, but like for it being like basically the first 3D platformer and executing it like so damn well, like for the time, yeah, it definitely deserves that 10 out of 10. Like nothing else was even competing with it. You had fucking Bubsy 3D trying to compete with it with like shitty tank controls and a platformer.
I didn't even know that game
So,
had
I mean,
tank
like,
controls.
what the hell else were you gonna do?
That's insane. I
Do
didn't
what
even know that game had tank controls. No wonder it's shit.
God, there's so many other reasons to ship it. Like it's garbage.
Yeah, or like, hell, speaking of tank controls, Resident Evil 4, like, that game is pretty hard to play nowadays, like, especially since we're spoiled with how good movement is nowadays. But, like, just because the movement isn't as refined as, like, other survival horror games nowadays, does that mean it's right to say that it's a real flaw of the game when it was just it's a piece of its time?
I will say there are some things that are like pieces of their times that I would still like always get on, like older games having like bullshit difficulty spikes or like needing an unnecessary amount of grinding for some older JRPGs. Like they could have easily just let the game be shorter and like let you enjoy it, but no, they put it in there. I feel like there are some aspects of like older design that are just always bad. Like they were always bad. There was nothing like, oh, this was for its time. Like I can excuse Mario 64's camera being a little wonky because like, you know, they were figuring things out, but there is no reason in hell like some of these games are making me like go all the way back to the beginning, like fucking Ghost and Goblins, like that bullshit with how bullshit their enemy location is half the time. Like get that out here.
No, that's fair. I think that kind of goes into our concluding points a little bit. Which if y'all don't mind, I'll start off with. Yeah, I mean, like Brewer's saying, it's like when you're looking at a game, there are many factors you need to look at when you're thinking about it critically. You need to think about its time period. You need to think about what it's doing. You should think about how you feel about the game, obviously, but it is important to note the flaws of the game, because no game is perfect, but that is why we have review scores, and that is why we share these review scores with other people, so that we let them know how we thought about this game and whether or not this game is right for them. Honestly, most of my purchases for video games would not have been made if I didn't look at these review scores. I was going to pick up what's that one game that didn't do so well, that it was supposed to be a successor to Dead Space.
successor to Dead Space. That's
Callisto,
hard.
the Callisto Protocol. The Callisto
Oh,
Protocol.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
Callisto
Oh,
Protocol.
that
I was
one.
very excited for the Callisto Protocol, and I was very tempted to buy it. But I saw the reviews come out, and I saw that it didn't have the best pacing or the best gameplay, and just had like some bugs. And you know what? That prevented me from buying the game. And there was a good chance that I wouldn't have enjoyed the game based off my expectations or my hype if I didn't look at those review scores. And I think that's very important to look at it.
Especially
But obviously, you can't rely on review scores for everything. You need to make your own opinion for a lot of stuff. But they should have a factor in whether or not you buy something.
yeah, I'd say that's why like with a lot of reviews I look at, like I'll look at like some of the quick reviews every now and then, just get a general idea. But once I get interested after looking at some of those general reviews, I then like to like let's see what's if there's like a lot of content around a game, like let's see if there's a community around it that really loves this game, or a lot of YouTubers who have talked about it, to see like what really is the appeal of this game. Does it appeal to me? Is there a reason I should play it? Because I don't need every game I play to be a 10 out of 10. So like, is there enough that's appealing to me to where I want to play this? I think it's worth my time and it's worth my money as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'll just quickly go over my concluding points. I think that, as we said in the beginning, review scores are a necessary part of every form of media we will ever have. It's the only way for anyone on the outside to get an idea of what they're going into before they, either waste money on it because it turns out they don't like it, or spend money on it and they actually end up really liking it. And I don't often look at review scores. I'll often just, buy something if I'm interested in it, and then, if one of my friends has ever played it or bought it, and I'll, ask them like, yo, what do you think of this game? And they'll be like, yeah, it's pretty good, or, what they'll say. And I'll usually go off that. Very little times will I actually just go out of my way to look at review scores and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair. Liam.
Liam.
I think overall, reviews can be helpful, but there's no such thing as an unbiased review. So if you want a game and you want it enough, don't listen to a review. But if you're on the fence or you don't know exactly what you're getting into, look at a review first. Other than that, it is up to you. The amount of games where I've wanted a game, I've looked at a review, and then I'm like, I'm not going to buy this game, that I can tell you is less than 10. If I want a game and I know I'm going to like the game, or I have a good idea of what the gameplay is going to be, and I get disappointed, that's on me. I can watch, read, whatever, a review, but at the end of the day, your own opinion is what matters. Your own enjoyment is what matters. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching our episode today on review scores and looking at games critically. If you like this kind of content, please smash that like button how you smash at your keyboard writing the nastiest review about your least favorite game, and hit the subscribe button. Comment down below what your highest rated game is, or if you do review scores, do you give grading systems, or do you just not review games at all? Tell us in the comments below. But guys, with that being said, thank you so much for watching this and sticking to the end. But with that being said, we've been FetchQuest, and this has been our episode about review scores and critical looking at video games. Thank you very much. See you later.
Goodbye, all you 10 out of 10s.
Bye-bye.